Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you once again to this Leadership Blueprint podcast. This is our edition number 8, which is the part 2 of the one we had last month that featured myself, Kunle, and Victor. Today, we want to conclude that edition, that episode, which is on democracy and political leadership in Africa. So today I'm going to be having another conversation with my very good friend, Victor Jatula. Like I told us the last time, our friendship is way, way, way back in the 90s, in the mid-90s. And we've maintained that cordial relationship. Today, we are going to have a conversation around democracy, conversation around political leadership. This is the space where Victor expresses himself as a professor. So I'm sure you are going to learn a lot from him. And in the future, we are going to be having many more other episodes that we are going to have together. The idea of this podcast is to provide a blueprint for a societal change, for a cultural transformation across Africa. We're not just looking at just Nigeria as a nation. Of course, we are Nigerians, but our outlook is on the entire continent of Africa, how we can provide a transformation across the continent of Africa. Of course, we are not the only person who will be able to do this. I need you, we need ourselves, we need everyone to be on board, to be able to bring about this neighborhood transformation, like I always say, which is we are going to do it. We are transforming the nation, but it's going to happen one neighborhood at a time. Now, reflecting back on our last episode, I know you've just gone to Nigeria and you just came back from Nigeria. And I know you said something in the last episode. You demonstrated a bit of optimism about the future of democracy in Africa, specifically in Nigeria, and how you hope that although there may still be challenges here and there, but you are very optimistic that the democracy in Africa, still being in its infancy stage, still has a lot of feature. So I just want to ask you, you were just recently in Nigeria. I just want to ask, are you still maintaining that optimism? Because you know, a lot of things are happening. We are hearing the news now. You've gone to see things for yourself.
Yes.
Still hoping that there is still future for Africa.
Yeah, there's still a lot of optimism about the future of Africa. Whether it is democracy that will take us to the promised land or another system of government or a repurposed democracy or a change in the political system. But there's always hope at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm sure Africa will not be an exception. Asia is a model continent today. They have the likes of Japan, China, South Korea, and the Asian tigers in Southeast Asia. But they've had their own long period of poverty, of deprivation, of lack. However, I think it's part of our human nature to not give up under pressure, to remain resilient until we get to the promised land. And I'm still hopeful that Africa will experience it. I was in Nigeria recently, like you rightly said, and to some level, I was disappointed about several things. The state of infrastructure, the roads are very bad. Electricity is a little bit better, but quite expensive.
Mm,
Um, without the private sector, I'm sure that system would totally collapse.
mm,
However, like we know, it's the private sector that drives the economy,
mm,
more so in the African context. In the absence of government, the private sector often steps up. Even in the West, private entrepreneurship, private businesses. So that's one glimmer of hope for me that civil society, the private sector will still function and they will still deliver. So yeah, a lot still to do, but yeah, there's hope. There's hope.
Thank you very much. Like you said, personally, I've always believed that there is future for Africa, and the only reason why we can be doing what we are doing now is because we believe in that future. And I can say that even though there is future for Africa, but it's not going to happen just because we're optimistic.
Yes,
We have to be intentional about it. We have to keep doing this kind of exercise that we are doing. From people needs to get into the public space and provide direction and provide a roadmap, a blueprint, like we are doing a leadership blueprint.
absolutely.
Who knows, somebody somewhere, a savior maybe, lurking somewhere who is going to benefit from this podcast. And it might be this podcast that will be an inspiration to that person.
Absolutely.
And that person may eventually become the savior that we have been looking for. Now, I know you must have heard about this comedian called Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
He's a very funny comedian. I remember when I was much younger, I was always amazed the way he does his own comedy. It's always, you can't stop laughing. And another, people knows him to be a comedian, but very few people don't know that he's also highly intellectual in the way he looks at the world around him, in the way he speaks to global issues. Is highly intellectual in his approach when it comes to lending voice to what is happening in the society. He made a very profound statement. He said, you need power only when to get, you need power only when you want to do something harmful. Otherwise, love is enough to get everything done. Now, if you look at that quote, that's very powerful.
Very profound.
Although in some instances, you will still need some power to be able to do certain things. But I think we understand what he's trying to imply there, that you don't need all this autocratic approach, this bossy approach to leading people to really get things done. With love, like the scripture says, love covers the multitude of sin. So with love, there is absolutely nothing you cannot, there is no barrier that you cannot break. Now, my question now is this. When I was looking at the problems of Africa, initially I didn't realize this on time. I just thought maybe the problems are just too numerous. But over time, as I began to articulate my thoughts, bringing the problems in Africa together, and I think I wrote an article sometimes ago, almost about 5 or 6 years ago, which I titled The 21 Problems of Africa. And after I wrote that article, somebody challenged me on LinkedIn. He said, it is easy to point out the problem, but what is the solution? What solution do you have to address some of these problems? And that is what has led me into what I'm doing today. Now, the question I want to ask is, in my own research, I discovered that the main problem of Africa, there are numerous problems, no doubt about that, but we can bring all the problems of Africa under just one thesis, and that is the leadership problem. And I just want to ask you, do you agree that leadership is actually the main problem of Africa? And if you agree or you don't agree, depending on which side of the divide you belong, what do you think? How do you think we should fix or address the leadership problem in Africa?
That's a very philosophical question. And it's very difficult not to agree with it. The leadership question is very, very central to development. If you look at world history and the history of development across the world, nations, economies, corporations, and families are built by leadership. It takes a leader in the family to change the trajectory of that family from poverty to prosperity. It takes leadership to run a successful business. In the same way, it takes leadership to run a successful company, successful country. Even continents that are doing well, like Europe, they come under the umbrella of the EU to make decisions that affect over 600 million people. Some decisions may be difficult to make at the country level, but when they get to the EU level, it's easier because they're not looking at particular circumstances or the peculiarities of the country. They're looking at the continent. But the point is made that it takes plenty of leadership to change anything, especially when we're talking about African continent and development. However, it takes more than leadership. Development takes more than leadership. There's so many studies that establishes that. The place of civil society or the followers is as important as the role of leaders, because leaders don't come out from a vacuum. Leaders emerge from a society. And it's often the case that the leaders that emerge from a society are not often better than the society that they come from.
They are products of the society itself.
They are products of the society. I'll give an example. Somebody told me this story that a few houses down their space, so their neighborhood, back in the 70s and the 80s, I think in the 80s, one custom officer was made the Controller General of Nigerian Custom. Honest man, disciplined man, straightforward man. But 3 months after I was appointed, he was suddenly removed. Because when he got into office, he stopped corruption, He copped bribery.
Mm.
He did all the right things.
Mm.
But people that were close to him within the leadership of the custom planned a coup against him to the point that 90 days after he got into power or into office, he was suddenly removed. So, that kind of shows us that leaders come from a particular context. While we focus on leadership, we should also kind of be mindful of civil society. I'll give an example also, like look at what's happening in the United States. The current leadership of the United States came to power through the democratic means. But since this government came to power, they've seemed to forget what democracy actually means. Freedom of speech, rule of law, independence of the court system, separation of powers. And what we see continuously in the United States is the concentration of power in a few hands.
Yeah.
So in such situations, you need civil society and informed people that can call leadership to question. An informed society that knows the role of leaders and also are aware of the role of followers, because there can't be passive followers anymore. Good societies, developed societies have active leaders and active followers because absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the space you occupy and your focus on leadership is not just about those who hold political power.
Yeah.
Leadership is not something that is only entrusted to a person by title.
Yeah.
Leadership is a mindset.
It's mindset.
You don't have to be the CEO of an organization to be a leader.
Yeah.
You can be the least paid person in the place and have leadership mindset. By that, you take responsibility.
Yeah.
A leader is future thinking.
Yeah.
A leader is engaged, is involved, is thinking of the collective. But in Africa today, we have people who occupy that position who don't have the quality. They are leaders by name, but leaders by title, but they are not leaders by mindset. They want to take. They are there to
as much as you can
protect their own personal interests. They're not thinking of the collective. You know, that's why I said at the start that Africa is going to get there. But what would take us there may not be called democracy. Or it may be called
or a remodified,
repurposed democracy.
Yeah.
Because in its current form, what we are practicing is what we've been given. And what we've been given may not fully serve our purpose.
Yeah, it has not been fully adapted to fit into our worldview,
our cultural, ethnic, religious diversity.
I agree with you.
So democracy, or whatever it's going to be called in the future, is still work in progress, and we're still finding ways to remodel it and repurpose it. And we need to take ownership of it so that it can become what we want it to be.
Maybe through this podcast, we might also champion that crafting of that proposed democracy. We don't know if it is going to be called democracy, but definitely we have to do something that will be distinct, and unique, that will resonate with who we are as Africans.
Yes, that will serve our purpose. That will meet our needs.
Yeah.
The focus is heavily on politics.
Yeah.
Not on the people.
On electioneering.
Yeah, it's on elections, but not on the people.
Yeah.
Although they call democracy government of the people, for the people, and by the people, what we see is government of a few, for the few, by the few. So in the West, they judge you as a politician based on how well you've served the people. I remember when Obama came into power, he was a young, handsome guy.
Yeah.
Before he left office, he had become old, gray hair everywhere because of the amount of responsibility and work.
Exactly.
But in the African context, you come in old and rickety, like Buhari. By the time you are leaving, you are a young boy.
Exactly. The man was looking fresh.
And the reason is because some people go there to work,
Exactly. Some
other people go there to
they
rest.
go to collect pension. Oh my God.
So yeah, that leadership is not the position, is the mindset.
Now, I want to ask because your arguments leads me to what the philosophers have been battling for years, which I don't think anybody has been able to find an answer to, which is the philosophical question of which one comes first. Is it the chick or the eggs?
Wow.
Which one comes first? Which was it, the egg that gave birth to the chick, or was it the chicken that gave birth to the egg? Which one comes first? When we're
It's
talking about leadership and the followership,
it's
which one
complicated.
should shape the other? Is it the followership that should shape leadership, or leadership to shape followership?
It's complicated because in every society, no matter how educated, how civilized, how developed, industrialized they are,
Mm,
there will still be some few that are gifted in statesmanship. They will still have their intelligentsia.
mm.
They will still have this crop of people
They're not
that,
coming to the philosophy of Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle.
yeah, so it will be inaccurate to think that everybody in society are the same,
Mm,
have the same leverage, the same intelligence, the same
mm,
expertise.
mm,
I think one of the things I've noticed in the West is that one-on-one, we're all the same, black or white.
mm,
But in Western societies, and this is the beauty of democracy,
mm,
they allow those who can do it to do it.
mm,
And that makes a big difference in their societies. In Africa, it's not often the case.
mm.
It's either you are too young, too poor, you are not Yoruba, or you're not Hausa, you're not religious,
Something
you're
has
not
to work
Muslim or
against you.
Christian,
Yeah,
you're not, they use a lot of ageism, they do a lot of sexism, you're a man, the place of a woman is in the kitchen, even if the woman has a better idea.
yeah.
Yeah, so those are the things that I think hold us back. So back to your question, in every society, some few people have better ideas.
Mm,
And when they're allowed to lead, they are able to lift a lot of people out of poverty,
mm,
out of depression.
mm,
The place of the collective, the place of the followers, is for them to know enough
mm,
to make collective decisions,
mm,
especially to decide on who do we allow to lead us.
mm,
Because even back in Greece, when democracy started, people knew enough to appoint a few people to lead the rest.
mm,
So I would still say that leadership is about maybe 70%
mm.
or 65%. I'm just taking the number from nowhere.
I know.
Yeah, maybe 30, 35% civil education, civil engagement, public understanding, public interest in the truth. So yeah, leaders are still very important. But like I said, leadership is often not a position.
Mm,
Leadership is a mindset.
mm,
And when those who have that right mindset are allowed to occupy the position,
mm,
it is solution meets a problem that translates to development. However, Africa has not had that opportunity. And it's very complicated. It's very, very complicated. Sometimes I'm sympathetic of the quality of African leaders. I sympathize with them because they're in a very difficult space. Many of them, before they come into power, they don't know the true state of the state, the finances of the state. Before they get into power, they have an illusion of what the resources is, and the wealth is, and then the power of the nation is. But when they get into power, they are contending with many things. Number one, they are contending with opposition party. They are contending with the media that doesn't like them. But much more importantly, they are contending with economic forces. Some within the nation. Much more powerful is forces from outside the nation. Like in the Nigerian example, by the time we became independent in 1960, our economic system has been solidified. Our banking system was in Western hands. Our transport system was in Western hands. Our industries and the technology that powered them was in Western hands. Our textile industry was, all we had control over was agriculture. Even the oil and gas was run by Western companies and still run by Western companies. NNPC is just a rent collector. This is the land, take whatever you want to take, we take from what you take. And many times it's not transparent. So for a government to come into power, to change that economic structure, in fact, when they gave us independence, like they did across Africa, it was just political independence. We didn't have much economic say. So you come in as a president and you see the systems in place, it's difficult. That's why most African companies, especially trying to compete, they don't survive. We tried Nigerian Airways. Can you imagine all the Africans traveling from Africa to Europe and back from Europe to Africa to the United States? They're all carried, 90% of them fly in Western-owned airlines. You can imagine the millions, billions of resources that's going into BA, Air France, KLM, and all of it. And they don't want any African airline to compete, talk less of overtake. So the same with importation of cars. The whole continent, there's no car manufacturer. The whole continent depends on food from abroad to a large extent.
Despite it is third of the land. I said despite having the 2/3 of the arable land in the world.
In the world. So there's a system in place that Africa should just consume and not produce, because it is where the production is happening, that's where the jobs are. Not even where the resources are, it's where the factories are.
It's where the factories
So the West will not want that to change. So for a country and a president to try to change that economic system is very, very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible.
It has
as we see in Burkina Faso.
Bold step. You have that person has to be able to make a bold step.
And that's why democracy in its current form may not make that happen. Because those bold steps, some of them have to be autocratic. Like we see in Burkina Faso, like we see in China, where they don't practice democracy, where things get done fast. Because in China, the focus is not it's nothing more than to catch up with the West. And to catch up with the West, you have to do things that are autocratic. You have to do things that not everybody needs to agree, but they have to be done. No, we're trying to catch up. We may not have the luxury of carrying everybody along. When we get there, you will see it. And this very important African scholar, Nombisa Moyo, she wrote a book about why AIDS is dead. Some of the arguments is that Africa needs some form of autocratic system to move the continent forward.
Well, I think for me, I don't really think autocracy is necessarily the solution, because whichever way you want to look at styles of leadership, the problem usually is not with the style. The problem always is with the players, the people who are embodying that style of leadership.
Yeah.
Just like you rightly pointed out, in China, you can see some forms of autocracy, but with results.
Yes.
In Nigeria, we've had autocratic leader.
Yes.
Never worked.
Yes, absolutely.
In countries like Dubai, you see monarchy with a blend of autocracy.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yes.
But in Africa, which was largely monarchical before the colonial master came, we even saw the role that the monarchy played in the slave trade. Most people are not even talking about that.
Yeah.
They are not talking about the role that the monarchy in Africa played in the slave trade. So sometimes it's not usually whether it is this form of government or this type of leadership that is the best. It is who is embodying that style of leadership.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
What makes the difference?
That's absolutely true.
So whether an autocratic leader that is benevolent or a democratic leader that has a twist of an autocracy, it all boils down to who is calling the shots.
Yes, I agree. If I add to what you're saying, yeah. South Korea too has a very similar history with Nigeria.
Yeah, exactly.
After they separated from North Korea, yeah, they went through long periods of military rule.
Yeah.
Although they don't like talking about their military past, yeah, but everything that they are today started during the military regime. It was the military guys that laid the foundation for industrialization. They were the ones that said, no, we have to produce ourselves. We're not going to depend on others. So the car manufacturing industry, the shipping industry, the technology industry, all the foundation, the education industry in South Korea was laid during the military regime. So I agree with you that, and I think it boils down to what we've been saying, that leadership is the mindset.
Yes, sir.
Whether you are in military uniform or you are in civilian uniform, whether it's called democracy or autocracy or a blend of the two, it's this set of people who sit and occupy that space.
Exactly, which comes to what Socrates, Plato are always talking about a leader being virtuous. When a leader is virtuous, it doesn't matter whether it is a military guy or a monarchy or a democratic president or representative. If the person who is, leading the society has some virtues, some enviable virtues, it will definitely reflect on the way the society will be governed.
Yeah.
Take even the monarchical system that we have in Africa. Take it for instance. Now, if you look at some of the earliest movies that were staged in the 80s, early 80s, late 80s, and maybe part of early 90s. I'm not talking about the kind of movie they are producing now in Nigeria. I'm talking about those movies. I'm sure you must have watched one or two of them.
Yeah.
You see the way the kings makes decision. It doesn't just order things just like that. It will consult A, consult B, consult C, and then bring their contribution together, and then and then be able to present based on what he has had. Then he will have enough wisdom to be able to say, I think this is what we should do. And then they will all agree.
Yes.
That this is what we should. That tells you that that is what monarchy is all about. It's not just one man calling the shot.
Yes.
It's a participatory style of leadership.
Yes.
Participatory, it is consultative.
Yes.
And I think these are some of the things that we need to look at in Africa to be able to reinvent our style of government to become something that is compatible with who we are.
I agree, 100%. 100%.
You made a mention. You made a mention of